Hello, welcome. I am Amy Fergus Fuller. If you didn't know that, if you've never worked with me before, seen me before, I am a mum of currently one, but I'm pregnant with my other one, with my second one. I had a C-section with my first, not a planned one. It was unplanned. It was so-called emergency. However, I now know it wasn't actually an emergency. And I'm here today because I wanted to offer you the 5 tips that I have been using, or am still using, to prepare for my dream birth. My dream birth is a VBAC, and I am now in a state of mind and in a place in my mind where I know that I'm going to get that VBAC. I'm not standing here or sitting here saying I'm hopeful that I get my VBAC. I'm wishing for a VBAC. That's not what I'm doing. I'm very much in the state of mind of I'm getting one. And whenever people say to me, "Oh yeah, I hope it goes well," I'm like, no, I'm getting one. And so that's why I wanted to tell you what the 5 things are that I have been doing to prepare for this, to get to this point where I am calm about birth, where I have no fear, and where I simply just, it's a weird thing. I don't feel excited. I don't feel, because excited is close to fear, just so you know. So if you're like, I'm so excited, it's actually just a little bit of fear. I'm just calm. And that's where I would love for you to get to as well, wherever you're at in your pregnancy and wherever you're at in your birth preparation journey. So shall we kick off? So, number 1, my first tip for you is education. By this, I mean understanding facts from fiction. I mean understanding proper physiological birth and knowing what your body is truly capable of, what your body is really made to do. Because of the situation with birth nowadays, you may be in your second pregnancy, you may be preparing for a VBAC, and you may still be kind of this mind of, I want that dream birth, but it just doesn't seem to happen for the majority of people. So I'm just hopeful, right? This is largely down to the fact that a lot of people really don't know the ins and outs of what happens to the body during birth and of what your body is really capable of. You know, there are antenatal courses out there. I won't name and shame. I'm sure you know which ones I mean because it's the most common one that everybody does. Their C-section and induction rates are super high. And whenever I talk to people about having done them and what they learnt, they didn't really learn anything by the sounds of things. They learnt the basics, right? So they learnt you're going to go into hospital, you'll go through this possibly in stage 1 of labour, and then stage 2 is when you push, and then stage 3 is when your placenta comes out. And that's kind of all that they cover. That isn't understanding physiological birth. Physiological birth is understanding deeply what your uterus is doing during labour, what your pelvis is doing during labour, and what you and your baby are doing together during labour. Your baby is doing a hell of a lot to get out. They're not just falling out, they're doing a lot. Your body is doing a ton. And your body knows how to do this. Again, you may be on this mindset at the moment of, my body doesn't know how to do it. I tried last time, it didn't know what to do. I promise you, your body does know what to do. You just weren't in the right circumstances for it to happen. I'll be going on to that kind of thing in a minute. So, physiological birth will teach you the wonders of your body, and it will really open up your mind to realizing, oh my God, actually, if I'm in the right place, if I'm creating the right circumstance, my body will just know what to do. Did you know there are people in comas who go into a coma having been pregnant and give birth in a coma? So if your body didn't know what to do, and if we needed to be coached by a midwife, people in a coma would not be able to give birth, would they? Think about that for a second. This shows us we don't need coaching. We don't need to be told what to do. That's not actually what a midwife's job is supposed to be. It's become that because what they learn on their training, unfortunately, is all the things that could go wrong with labor, that could go wrong with birth. And they don't look at physiological birth. They simply look at, right, this is when we're going to induce someone. This is how we induce someone. This is what we do if shoulder dystocia happens. They look at all the possible negative things that actually are only very common, again, if you're not in the right circumstances. With a low risk pregnancy, there is no reason why your body shouldn't be able to do what it needs to do for you to give birth. And it's clear when people who are in a coma can give birth that you can do it. If they can, you definitely can. So yes, physiological birth is a very important part of it. Number 2 is location. This one is so important. And I don't want you to kind of sit there and poo-poo me saying this for a second. I'm going to give you a little factual information. So we all get encouraged to go to hospital. We all get encouraged to go to the antenatal appointments in the hospital or wherever it may be. And especially if you've had a previous cesarean, you're encouraged to go to hospital. Now, I hear so many stories from mums who have had a previous cesarean who want to have a VBAC. And what I hear is they go to the hospital, they speak to the midwife, and they come to me and they go, "Oh, I'm so pleased. My midwife is really all for me having a VBAC." And I go, "Fantastic. So what's the plan then? Where are you going to give birth?" "Well, they've told me I need to come into hospital, and they've told me I'll have to be monitored throughout the labour just to ensure that everything is fine. But they're really for me having a VBAC. And they've also told me that they'll have to give me a C-section if I don't have the baby by 41 weeks. So if this is you right now, you're pregnant, you've had a previous cesarean, and you're hearing any of these things, these are very big red alarm bells, huge. This is not supportive. This is coercive. Basically what they're saying to you is, yeah, I'll play along with your VBAC idea, but I'm going to try every which way to ensure that that actually doesn't happen. We know through quite a lot of extensive research now that continual monitoring during labour increases your chances of having a cesarean by about 80%, if not more than that. We also know that continual monitoring and being in hospital lowers your chances of having a VBAC because hospitals are no longer the safest place to give birth. This is a misconception. Hospitals are there, thank goodness, and there is medical intervention available to us, thank goodness, if we need it. But by putting everyone into the hospital, you're basically saying you're going to need the interventions, you're going to need the support, so we may as well just start you off with them, right? The rate now of induction is about 50%. The rate now of C-sections is also about 50%. If you look online and you type in rate of C-sections, you'll still see a very, 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 very old number of about 34% in the UK. And I think it's I think they say 36% in the US. I can't remember exactly. But when you look at individual hospitals, and you look at the stats that they're giving each month, or however many months it is that they do their stats, it is quite clear that that is not the case. And it's quite clear that the rate of C-sections is actually more like between 40 and 50%. There is a big reason for that, and it is not your body. It is not us. We are not the problem here. Hospitals are the problem, right? I'm sorry if I'm scaring you right now, and I'm sorry if you're thinking, but I'm going to hospital to give birth. Don't panic. I am going to say to you that location can also be influenced by your environment and the things that you apply to that environment. I know people who have had very successful VBACs in hospital. Okay, so it's not impossible. I'm simply saying, if you're at this stage right now where you're thinking about what you can do and where you should go, hospitals are not the place. Birth centres that are attached to hospitals, you may as well be going into the labour ward. There's really no difference because it's exactly the same midwifery system and it's exactly the same policies. The only difference is that when you're in the birth centre, you don't have access to things like an epidural, okay? That's the only difference. If you're going to a standalone birth centre, very different story. They are much more like being home away from home because they're a different staff. They have different policies. Not completely different to hospitals, but pretty different. And their rates of vaginal birth are much, much higher than birth centres in hospitals. Again, if you look at the stats as they are that hospitals are providing, what we see is a huge number of women giving birth one way or another on the labour ward and a minuscule number giving birth in their birth centres. Now, I know for 100% of a fact that that is not because women are not trying. Everyone I speak to says, oh, I'm going to the birth centre, I'm going to give birth in the birth centre. That's my choice, that's what I want to do. They don't stay there because their birth gets sabotaged. So you have to know how to navigate this system. If your plan is to go into hospital or to go into a birth centre that is attached to a hospital, you must know how to navigate that system. You need to know when rather you have the availability to say no to things, like vaginal examinations. You do not have to have vaginal examinations ever in your labour, and they should not be pushed. Unfortunately, in pretty much every single hospital, people will really struggle with this because you go in and they want you to have a vaginal examination before you even get into the labour ward or the birth centre. You can say no. They may very well try hard to not let you get in because of that, but you can say no. And I advise you to say no because it doesn't tell anybody anything. Vaginal examinations are a bloody waste of time. I'm sorry, but they are. There's little evidence, like on research papers, but from a lot of people that I've spoken to, birth educators, mothers, decent midwives, it seems pretty obvious that your cervix can change based on your emotional state. And for a lot of people, we don't like to have random fingers shoved up our vagina, right? It's not very pleasant, it's not very comfortable, and your cervix is like a sphincter muscle. It is just like your anus, right? So when you do a poo, or when you're doing a poo, and you're nice and peaceful and relaxed and it's coming out, and then suddenly somebody pulls on the handle of the door, like you're in a shopping centre or something, immediately your bum goes, ugh, and then you can't poo anymore. Essentially, your cervix does a very similar thing. So by having a vaginal examination, they're not telling you anything. They're also not going to tell you how long your labour is. You may go in, I'm going to use my sister as an example. She went in, when she had her son, which was 11 years ago, she went to a standalone birth centre, and she agreed to a vaginal examination when she went in. And they said, I'm sorry, you're only about 3 centimeters, if that. Just go home. You've got loads of time left. And she said to them, listen, I'm really feeling these contractions. I don't think that that's going to be the case. I feel like this baby is coming soon. And they kind of poo-pooed, rolled their eyes and went, all right, fine, we'll check you again in another half an hour or an hour or something. I think they said a half hour. Half an hour later, they checked her and she was 10 centimeters dilated, right? So that 3 centimeter mark doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. It can be 3 centimeters for hours, or it could be 3 centimeters for half an hour, and then off you go, baby's coming. It really means nothing. So there's just no point in doing it. A midwife should very easily be able to look at a woman, look at a person, and say, I can see where you're at in your labor. I can see you're not very far, or I can see you're progressing far. Trouble is, most midwives in hospitals can't see that. Most of them, a woman will come in who is clearly in active labor, and they're like, oh, but we need to check your cervix. We don't know how far along you are. But it's clear she's in active labor. She's making all the mooing sounds. She's got deep breathing going on. She's in the zone. All these things are clear signs that a woman is in active labor. But a lot of these midwives don't know, because all they know to base things on is checking your cervix. And it's just not the only way, and it's not the best way. Okay, so I went off on a little bit of a tangent there about vaginal examinations, but it's good for you to know, I think, because a lot of people don't even realize that they can say no to them. But there are many, many other things that you may come across being in a hospital or birth center hospital situation, like right from the very beginning with sweeps. You may be offered sweeps. Do you know the risks of sweeps? They won't tell you the risk of a sweep, because all they'll say to you is, oh, it's fine, it's not an induction. There are many risks to a sweep. They may suggest breaking your waters. Do you know the risks of those? Because again, they won't tell you them. They may suggest induction. Do you know the risk of induction? Because again, they're not likely to tell you the risk of induction. All these things people come across, and they don't know the full risks, because generally they're not told them. When it suits people, midwives or doctors, then they provide you with risks that will encourage you to do the thing that they want you to do. For example, my birth, my waters may have broken. I know they hadn't. But I went in and I said, I think some of my waters have broken. So they said to me, checked me, okay, you need to come in 24 hours, because otherwise your risk of infection doubles. That's all they say. They don't give you the number of what double means. When somebody says to you, your risk doubles, what do you see in your head? You see a 50, right? You see a 50%. You see a 2. You see a big double, right? When it comes to your waters breaking, you're going from a risk of 0.05 to 0.1, I think it is. Either way, it is a teeny tiny risk of infection on both the double and before. Now, what increases your risk of infection, however, is all the things that will happen to you if you don't say no to them, and you don't know to say no to them, like vaginal examinations. They massively increase your risk of infection, hugely. So you need to know all these things. This is part of the education side of things. It's part of understanding physiological birth, and why physiological birth is so much healthier for a person, because you're not putting your body in risk in these ways. Yeah, and then thinking about your location means you're not putting yourself in various risks. If you choose to give birth at home, like I am, which is now known to be the safest place for a low-risk pregnancy to give birth, and if you've had a C-section, you are still a low-risk pregnancy. If you have a low-risk pregnancy, being at home is well known to be the safest place to give birth. It lowers your chances of everything by about 50%, and it increases your chances of having a happy, wonderful experience by about 90%. And that is a true number. They did a study recently where they asked a bunch of women, I can't remember what the number was, but a bunch of women, must have been like 100 or something, who had given birth in hospital, and then about 100 who had given birth at home and asked them for their difference on various things, but one of them was overall, how enjoyable was your experience? And pretty much all of the women who gave birth at home said 9 out of 10. And pretty much all of the women who gave birth in hospital said lower than 5 out of 10. That is a very, very big difference when it comes to birth, your birth, which is and should be an incredible experience. And you should come out of it saying 9 out of 10, that was an incredible experience. No matter what happened, no matter how deep your contractions were or surges were, it should still be that you come out of it and go, wow, that was a mind-blowing experience in a good way. So if your plan is already, let's say maybe you're 38, 39 weeks pregnant and you're thinking, I'm going to hospital already, shit. I didn't even think about a home birth. What do I do? Number one, stay at home for as long as you possibly can. Don't be afraid for your baby to come at home by accident. If you can manage your fear, and I'm coming on to that in a minute, you will be fine because you will be in your safest place. You will be in the place that makes you happiest because you'll be at home. There is nothing wrong with being in labor at home and giving birth at home. So don't start panicking the minute you go into active labor and thinking, I've got to get to hospital really, 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 really fast. Take your time. If you really desperately want to go into hospital, just stay at home for as long as you can. Wait until you are 100,000,000% certain that you're in active labor, which will mean that you're like, whew, I'm really in the zone now. I'm really feeling these contractions. They are really coming in strong and pretty frequently, but like evenly. And I think I'm ready to go. Be at that point. You are likely for your labor to stall for a while when you're in the car and when you get to the hospital, because your body automatically will go into a sense of fright because you're changing your environment. So your oxytocin will lower for a while. So then your job when you get to hospital or birth center is to increase the oxytocin as much as you can. You can do this in a number of ways. Just think about all the things that make you happy. Think about what you need. You may laugh at this, but think about what you need to enjoy a sexual experience. Like for you to be able to orgasm, unless you're very kinky and you like to be outside and you like to have people talking to you and watching you when you're having sex. I know a lot of people like that. That's fine. I have no judgment. Like, sex is beautiful. Just do what you want to do. But what I'm saying is, in general, the majority of us need a darkened space. I mean, even people who do like to have sex in open kind of spaces with other people around, they're not doing it with bright lights on. They're not doing it with somebody going, come on, you can do it, you can do it. Come on, you can have an orgasm. No. They're all in the moment together, right? They're all enjoying it together. That is the same environment that you need for birth. It's no joke. Oxytocin is released for you to make a baby, and oxytocin is released for you to push out that baby. So you need the same feelings in both environments. So you want a darkened room. If you're going into the labor ward, you're going to say to them, I want the lights off, or I want them really, 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 really low. You're going to bring yourself some candles, obviously fake ones, like battery powered ones, because you can't take real ones in. Maybe some fairy lights. You're going to take maybe some music, some smelly things like lavender, something that keeps you calm. I would even suggest bringing with you some earphones and an eye mask, because you just need to shut out everything and everyone. And the beautiful thing about keeping earphones in is you're not going to hear a midwife who's constantly going to you, oh, I want to see how far along you are, I want to check your vagina. No, just shut up and let me get on with it, right? That's what you need to be able to say. You're going to need to be strong in this if you're planning to go into hospital, because they have their policies, they have their things that they have to write down, they have their things that they have to stick to. This is what makes it so difficult, because you're fighting against the system, right? The system is not what is good. I am not saying that every midwife is horrendous. So there are some wonderful midwives that you can come across in hospital, thank goodness. But they still really struggle because they're fighting against the system. They're fighting against the policies that they have to stick to. So you just have to be ready to be powerful. Find your inner mother tiger now. Don't wait until your baby has arrived. Believe me, I waited until my baby arrived, and it massively sabotaged my birth. Hugely. I went from wanting that beautiful dream birth experience to having every single what's the word? Well, induction and what have you under the book, and then ended up with a cesarean. You want to find your mother tiger now, right now. Your partner can help you do that, your birth partner. This is the other thing. It's I'm going to come to it at the end, but your partner plays a big part in creating that environment and that safe space, that safe bubble. Okay. So I knew that one was going to be a long one, because that one is probably the most important. It just makes the world of difference. If you are close to giving birth, going into labor is what I meant to say, and you're now thinking, I'm not really sure what I can do here, contact me. Send me a message. When I send you the link to this video, you can just email me back. Let's talk. Let's get a quick session in. We can get a quick kind of prep session in to support you in knowing the things that you need to know to be ready to be in that space. Okay, so number 3, movement. Movement is vital. Now, if you can start doing things like yoga very early on, then fantastic, because what movement provides you is a balance in your body. For physiological birth to happen easily, we need a balanced pelvis, we need a balanced uterus, we need a balanced pelvic floor, we need everything that surrounds our baby and our birthing system to be in balance. And so what movement does is keep you in that state of balance. You also need to think about the health side of things when it comes to movement and your body. Don't be skimping on water during your pregnancy, and definitely not during labor. You need tons of water during labor. Drink, 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 drink. You do not want to get dehydrated. Dehydration will give you painful contractions. So the more hydrated you are, the much easier the contractions are going to feel. You need to take care of yourself. Eat well. You can do things towards the end of your pregnancy, like eating dates. They have been known and been used for centuries to help women in labor. Both they think that it may decrease the length of labor and it may decrease the pain in labor. So start eating dates, add them to your porridge, add them to some smoothies, eat them on their own with some peanut butter and chocolate. It's delicious. They are a great thing to start doing. You can have raspberry leaf tea to help to prepare your body as well for labor. These are all in the kind of lead up weeks. And then as you get to that kind of 30, 32 and so on mark in your pregnancy, you want to be keeping yourself in as much of a good upright type of position as possible. I'm not saying don't lay down, but you need to be sitting on like birthing balls. I have one behind me over there. so that your uterus really and your baby is in a neutral position, not in a posterior position. Because if you keep bringing yourself into a posterior position, it's highly likely that your baby will turn back to back. This can make labour harder. It is not impossible to give birth if your baby is back to back. It's not impossible at all, but it will make it harder and it may make it more painful. It tends to mean that your labour will be a little bit longer, basically because your baby then just has to work that bit harder to get out. They have to turn in a different direction, and it just makes labour a bit longer. So you want to do as much as you can to keep yourself in a forwards position. I recommend a lot to my clients and my students to do things where they're like cleaning on all fours, crawling around the house. Yeah, just lots of all fours action. Having the birthing ball is wonderful. Towards the end of my pregnancy with my son, whenever we used to watch TV, I would either sit on the ball or I would lean over the ball in a kind of all fours position. I'd go into a kind of semi-lunge position with the ball. There's just so many different positions that you can do with it that would allow you to be comfortable and balanced, to keep yourself balanced and to keep your baby in that good position so that they can get into the right position for you to give birth. The other thing is movement in general. So we have kind of got a little bit too over the top with this whole active labour idea. And people have taken that to mean that you must remain active throughout the whole of your labour and that you must keep moving and you must keep walking and you must keep bouncing. Your labour could be long. That would be exhausting. This is what happened to me. I kept getting told by the midwives, just keep walking, just keep bouncing, just keep walking, just keep bouncing. Actually, what I really could have done with is when my contractions weren't too strong, I could have done with just laying down and chilling out. You need rest time. You can get up and move around when you're having a contraction, but in between contractions, chill, just relax. You don't need to be wandering around. And the same goes for when you start labour. When labour begins, don't go into a panic and start moving around constantly. Stay in your oxytocin zone. Chill, have a bath, watch a movie. Just think, oh yeah, I'm in labour. I'll just carry on. You could be in that state for days, especially if it's your first birth. It just takes longer often because it just does. You know, it's the first time your body's doing it, so it just takes a bit longer. So just relax. Don't overtire yourself. But while you are pregnant and in that state where you can move around, get moving, stay strong. By staying strong, you're going to alleviate your risk of back pain, hip pain, pelvic pain, round ligament pain, lightning crotch. All of these things generally happen because we're not strong enough during pregnancy to support our changing body, to support the weight of our baby. I'm just going to take some water. And so by staying strong and stable, you're massively supporting yourself. You're going to do yourself a massive service by remaining strong and stable. And also mobile and to be able to move. You know, muscles have to be in a state of able to hold you whilst also able to let go. Whenever I'm teaching yoga to pregnant people, that's what I focus on, keeping you in that state of balance, basically. Within movement, I'm also going to talk about breath for a second. So breath, as we all know, is powerful during labour. It's why everyone teaches some form of breath for birth. The main thing I would say is just listen to your body. Try and use your breath to control and slow your nervous system. So the times when I was in labour with my son and I was in a state of fight and flight because of the situation, anytime I went into a panic, my breath was panicked. And so every time I felt that happening, I told myself, calm down. Take a long, slow, deep breath. Breathe through the contraction. And honestly, it will make the world of difference. I mean, I managed to go 48 hours with no pain relief, no gas and air, just my breath. And I was not in a physiological birth state. I had been given copious amounts of sweeps. My waters had been broken, like artificially broken, as in like they didn't break on their own. So I was in a lot more pain and discomfort than I would have been in if I was having a physiological birth. And so the breath was, yeah, it was everything for me during labor. There are certain breathing techniques that can help you out more. So again, that's why I teach a variation of some, of many, but just breathe and just think, I'm just going to breathe and I'm just going to control my breath and I'm going to breathe slowly and I'm going to use my breath to calm myself down. It's huge. It can honestly take you through labor with no pain relief whatsoever. So it's wild. It's amazing. Okay, number 4. Number 4 is the mind. Now, this is unbelievably important, and I'm sure you can gather why from all of the things that I've been talking about. Fear is a big barrier for us during labor, and that fear can be from many different levels. So you could be experiencing fear due to the environment that you're in, due to the things that people are telling you or saying to you, or you could also not really realize that there is fear underlying from possibly previous experiences with birth, but also from life's experiences. If all you've ever come across is negative stories surrounding birth, the TV version of birth, which is just a joke, of course you're going to have fear surrounding birth because you're going to only know those scenarios. You don't know the wonderful, beautiful scenarios that can be natural birth or physiological birth, sorry. There could be things that you've experienced as a child, as an adolescence, that actually hold you back, that you don't even know about. Things that perhaps your parents used to say to you that have given you false beliefs about what you and your body are capable of. All of these things can hold us back. We need to step away from fear. Or rather, actually, what I mean is we need to step towards it. So as a kind of example, if you follow me on social media, which I think many of you who have registered for this do, you know that I'm honest about birth. I'm honest about the situation and the state of things as they are, because I think that you need to know the truth. And one of the things that comes up with this is that people have frequently told me that they are triggered by various things that I say. Now, the minute you feel triggered by something, understand that there is something about that. Why is it triggering you? It's not that I'm being nasty. I have no agenda here other than to support women and people who are giving birth to have a wonderful experience. That is my agenda. My agenda is not to scare you, even though it might scare you. But why is it scaring you? That's what I want you to dig into. That's where I want you to lean into the fear, because by leaning into it, you're saying to yourself, okay, I recognize that something is scaring me here. something feels wrong here. What is it? So as an example, I've had, obviously I talk about C-section births a lot and getting a VBAC, and I talk a lot about not going into hospital. Now, this can be scary for a lot of people who have had a previous cesarean, because unfortunately, for the majority of us, we were traumatized by it, because you probably were in labor for hours and hours, and you ended up with a C-section, and you've been told that they've saved your life and that they've saved your baby's life, and that you needed that cesarean and it was an emergency. Now, if you are triggered by me saying to you something along the lines of, you have been lied to, why are you being triggered? Because if you know that it was an emergency, if you know that your life actually was saved and that your baby's life actually was saved, me saying that to you is not going to trigger you, because I will always also put a caveat to these things where I say there are times when it is needed. For those of you who needed it, you know who you are. But if you start arguing with me about the fact that I'm bringing this to you and saying, maybe you didn't, what it is that little voice in your head going, she might be right. I might not have needed this cesarean. I may have had my birth sabotaged. And that is a horrible thing to realize. I had to realize this, okay? So this is why I'm not trying to be mean to you. I had to come to this realization. I had to lean into this fear. I had to lean into these feelings of my birth has been sabotaged. And that was hard, very hard to do. But I am so glad that I did it, because now I know the truth. And now I am in a place where I fully 100 million bazillion% trust my body and my ability to give birth, which is the only reason why I know that I will get my HBAC. I say HBAC because I'm giving birth at home. Yeah, you need to sometimes lean into the fear to dispel it and to get rid of the things that are essentially causing you the problems. So yeah, we have to do these things sometimes. In my pregnancy courses, so I was just looking at my notes there for a second to see if there was anything I missed on there. I provide you with visualizations and techniques that will help you to break down some of these barriers and to get past the fears. But if you can work with someone to support you in breaking through those barriers, massively do that. My doula, Carmen, is a wonder, and she has helped me to break through any of those final fears that I had surrounding birth. No, it wasn't even that they were surrounding birth, but they were surrounding me. And I would highly, highly recommend her doula services. So if you want those details, let me know. Okay, so number 5, last thing, and this is not a long one, but it's an important one, is support. So I mentioned that I was going to talk about this later. Who's supporting you in birth, whoever that is so important. You may think you want your mother there. You may think you want your partner there. Are they both good choices? Is your mother a good choice? Did your mother have a physiological birth herself? Did she have a wonderful birthing experience? Because if she didn't, she may be coming into your birth space and saying things like, oh, I think you should be going into hospital. I think we should be calling the midwife now. And she could bring her fear to you, which you don't need. Now, your birth partner hopefully you're going to do all of the preparation work with. So hopefully your birth partner is as prepped as you are on the side of not being fearful and knowing to trust your ability and your body. And so hopefully they will be a good support to you. I will have my husband with me, because he has been on this journey with me, and he truly deeply trusts that I know what I'm doing, and truly deeply trusts that my body can do this. So I trust him to be there. I know that he's going to be supportive to be there, and I know he's going to be helpful. So I'm happy for him to be there. I don't have my mother. My mum died when I was 21. So that's not even an option for me, but I personally would never have chosen to have my mum with me, for the reasons that I said. She didn't have a physiological birth. That I was born via forceps, as far as I know, and she probably would have brought her fears with her into the birth space. So that would never have been something I would have thought of. And then I'm also having a doula. So I said I've got Carmen. I chose very carefully who my doula was. I wanted somebody who had extensive experience with VBACs. I wanted somebody who had had a VBAC themselves, and Carmen was one of them. And we just gelled immediately. The minute I spoke to her, I was like, yes, I know I want you to be my doula. And I'm lucky enough that she lives close by me, or near enough to me, to be my doula in person. And yeah, having a doula, it is, honestly, I would recommend it to everybody now, especially if you are thinking about going into hospital. Now, many doulas will actually choose not to support birth in hospital now, because they have to do so much to fight for the person that they're working for, and they shouldn't have to do that. It's not right. It's not fair. They're supposed to be there to help support you and not have to fight for you. It's just not right. So some will not go with you if you have a hospital birth planned, but the majority will. And to be honest, you need someone, if they are happy to come into hospital with you, you are going to need a doula who will fight for you. You aren't going to want a doula who's going to stand by and go, if your wish is to not have a vaginal examination, and the minute they offer you one and you go, oh, because you're in a labor state, you want a midwife a doula, sorry, who turns around to the midwives and go, no, 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 you're not giving one. You're not giving her one. She does not want one. You need someone who is going to fight for you, because that's the only way you're going to get through it. And a doula will generally help keep you stuck to what your wishes are. So I highly, 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 highly recommend that you have a doula, especially if you're planning to go into hospital or a birth centre. But I mean, I've chosen to have a doula to be at home because I just have. I want that extra support, because there may be times during my labour where things come up, because they do. It's an almost out of body experience at times in labour, where we become something so different, and you need somebody there who can help support you in getting you through that journey. Is somebody who knows you, who understands you, who can look at you and go, what's holding you back, what's wrong here, and help you to get past whatever's stopping you. You don't necessarily need that, but it can be really helpful to have that. And then if you're planning a birth at home, it's up to you whether you want to invite a midwife into that space too or not. I've chosen not. Um, so that's entirely up to you. And you could have a home birth team and in your mind kind of be thinking, well, I'll call them if I want to and need to during labor. Excuse me, but they're really just there as a if. Like, you're not really thinking you want them. Or you may be thinking, no, I really, really want to have that support to call on. So I definitely want that team. Okay, so you need to think about what works for you, what is going to support you. Yeah, and be prepared for that. The other thing to think about, and this was something that I really struggled with my son's birth, I did not want to be meeting a whole bunch of people I didn't know. And that's what happens when you go into labour in a hospital. You're not going to know the midwives. In a home birth situation with a home birth team, you're likely to have met them all. You might not know them, like know them, but you're likely to have met them all. So it puts you in a place where you're more likely to know the person who's coming into your home, which can again make you just feel safer. It's just not nice to have strangers around you, even if you know that they're midwives and they're supposed to be there to support you. It doesn't make us feel safe to be among strangers. And for birth to happen physiologically, you need to feel your safest. You need to feel supported and safe. So that's my 5 tips. In a rundown, that is education, understand physiological birth, location and environment, movement and breath, the mind, getting past those fears, and your support. Those are the 5 steps, the 5 tips. Now, how can you learn these in depth? Do my pregnancy yoga and birth course. If you live anywhere near Enfield, you can do this in person with me. But if you don't live anywhere near Enfield, you can do this online with me. Now, of course, if you are like 39 weeks or something, you're not going to be able to do the course. The course starts on the 24th of July. It's for 6 weeks. And so if you are very near the end, then let's get a call in and do a short kind of birth prep situation so that you're really in a good place. If you aren't near the end and you've got plenty of time, then definitely come and do the pregnancy yoga and birth course. The whole point of this course is that it will massively empower you to birth within your power, to birth in your strength, to birth with absolute confidence and trust in yourself and in your body, and to know that you can do this. You'll have 6 weeks of yoga with me, so you're getting that stability, you're getting that movement, you're getting that strength, you're getting that mobility. You're going to learn breath techniques, relaxation techniques. You're going to get relaxation tracks that you can practice and use during your labor and before. Then as part of the course, you're also going to get 3 humongous bonuses. One is my 1-day birth prep retreat, which is for you and your partner. So that is a whole day where we go deep diving into physiological birth, understanding that truth around birth, that truth around your body and what your body is capable of. We rehearse various positions and things that you can do and try during labor. We look at all the risks, what the truth is behind them, what the risks are, what the numbers are, so that you can make proper informed choices about things and know when to say no and when to say yes. We look at how you can essentially manipulate your birth. So if things are going too slowly, if it's uncomfortable, things that you can do to change that situation and to very possibly make your labor kind of progress better. The day retreat also comes with lunch, which is lovely. And like I said, it's for your partner too. So this is where your partner learns what their role is, how they keep you safe, how they can support you, and how they can have something to do. Because there is a lot that they can do. They just need to know what it is. Then you also, the other bonus is you get a one-to-one session with me, which can be used however you like. You could use it for you yourself to do some extra movement. You could use it to do some extra birth prep. You could use it to for you and your birth partner to talk about your plans, your concerns, literally whatever you want. That one-to-one session is there for you to do with as you please. And then you also get access to my monthly Mother's Circle, which you have access to throughout your pregnancy. So if you are a lucky one and you are early on in your pregnancy, then you'll get 9 months or 8 months or something of Mother's Circles, which is going to be the most beautiful space, community space, for you to be with other mothers, people who are giving birth, to talk with each other, to voice your feelings, and to just be among our own village, our own people, who can support you through this incredible transformational time in your life. And then the last possible bonus, if you happen to book this by midnight tonight, I'm going to put this in the email, so hopefully you might read that. Then you will get an extra bonus, which is my online mother's playlist. I never know how to explain that. It's a video playlist of yoga classes, basically, for pregnant people, so that you can start practicing right now. And then at the moment, you get all of this 30% off. That makes it ridiculously cheap. I can't remember what the number is. I meant to write it down. I think that makes it £156, something like that. I think it's £156 for the 6 weeks. You can also pay in a 3-month installment, which then makes it £61 something. I think it's £61.60 a month for 3 months. This is a time-sensitive offer, so this offer is only available until Monday. So get that booked if you want that 30% discount. The course starts on the 24th of July. Every yoga session is Monday, 7:30 to 9. They're all recorded, so if you can't make any of them live, don't worry. You will get to watch the recording, and you will have it for the duration of your pregnancy. So it's not like you're only going to have it for a week and then bye-bye. You've got it for the duration of your pregnancy, so you can go back to these classes as and when you want to throughout. You'll also have access to the birth prep course, because that's also going to be recorded. So you'll have all of that information for the whole of your pregnancy. Honestly, if you are prepping for a VBAC, do this course. You will come out of this absolutely prepared, because you will be, in the end, like I am, in a place where you trust, you have no fear, you know that's where you want to be. Don't be hopeful. Be in the know that you are going to get the birth you want, be it a VBAC, be it your first child. You will get the birth that you want if you do this course. Thank you so much for registering and for joining me. And if you have any questions after this, just send me an email and we can have a chat. We can have a chat over the phone, we can have a chat on Zoom, we can have a chat over email, whatever you prefer. Let's have a chat and let's get you in a place where you are ready to give birth. All right, lovelies. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening, wonderful day tomorrow if you're happening to watch this tomorrow or something. And see you soon. Bye.